Talk about candles.
Okay.
What are they? They smell.
No. Where does the wax go?
When you burn a candle, where does the wax go?
So, are you telling me some of it evaporates?
That's what I don't understand.
Am I huffing candles?
That's what I don't understand.
Okay.
Where does the wax go?
Okay.
Is that what the smoke is? Because that can't be right.
It's what the smell is. It has to be the smell. It evaporates into.
But you can smell a candle if it's not burning.
Not really. You have to go up real close.
But what I'm saying is the smell can't be. I thought it was just heated smell that smelled.
Is it wax particles? Is that what carries the smell into your nose?
It has to.
That can't be healthy.
There's no other explanation.
So if I sneeze a whole bunch into one jar and then immediately close it, eventually will I have a candle?
Well,
Would your sneeze
is
turn
boogers
to
wax? No.
Is boogers wax?
Do boogers be wax?
Is boogers wax?
Is boogers be wax? Now, genuinely, where does the wax go?
It has to evaporate. That's it. Heat makes things evaporate. If there's one thing I know, it's heat makes things evaporate.
And that's science.
Think about water. Yep.
Yeah.
Think about it. That's it. That's what happens.
So would wax be the ice form essentially? So what's our liquid? Is just that just melted? No.
Melted wax.
It's
Like on a
melted
warmer.
wax. It's the wax that you can put your finger in. You
And
come out.
the gas form is smell.
Well, what I want to understand, I can't be, because there's no such thing as candle condensation. It's burning. It's not evaporating.
It's consumed. Where does the wax is? Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Because the wax doesn't burn.
Wax isn't flammable.
The wick burns.
Right. This makes no sense.
Except it does make sense. S-C-E-N-T-S.
Oh, that's so good, Doge.
Oh my gosh. This whole podcast has been worth it.
That was your money one.
That was a good one.
That was it.
Is that the end of the bit?
Yeah.
Is that our intro?
Yeah.
I mean, we can't do the episode now.
Hello, and welcome to Two Chunks and a Hunk, our movie podcast where we give pumps and dumps. My name is Jordan Wonders, and this week, I'm your chunk.
I'm Doge, and I don't believe in fairy tales about chakras or energy or chunks.
I'm David Fleece, and I'm the eye of Aga Hunko.
Did you forget again?
That's why I started laughing.
This is like the 26th episode of this show, David.
I forgot what movie we were watching when I was coming up. I was like, oh shoot, what do we watch? What do we watch? Okay. What's the biggest thing in this movie? Got it.
Well, this week we're talking about Doctor Strange. And there's some stuff to sift through here, so let's just jump right in.
Mm-hmm.
Doge, snips, please.
Doctor Strange tells the story of very successful, very talented, very like top of the world guy, Dr. Stephen Strange. Yep. Is he a neurosurgeon? He works on brains, right?
I mean, he's a
brain digger.
I think he does a bunch of stuff because he
Brain.
did.
She took my thoughts.
Brain digger.
Oh, she's a brain digger. Play my brain.
So
And I can't dream.
in Marvel Studios presents Brain Digger. Doctor Strange is a very talented neurosurgeon who has a car wreck and pretty much loses the use of his hands, right?
Squishy fingers.
he gets them noodle hands and he can't use his fingers. And so he goes on a journey of self-discovery and also a journey of magic discovery. He encounters the Ancient One in, where's it, Nepal? It's in Kathmandu, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is Nepal.
Yeah. So he encounters the Ancient One in Nepal and she teaches him all about the different dimensions in the multiverse and how to harness power from the magic dimension. And so he really just kind of studies for the reason that the movie has to keep going. There's not a ton of like great internal motivation for him to study, but in so doing, he encounters Caecilius, who is a disciple of Dormammu, which is the dark dimension. And he has to keep the dark dimension from encroaching on our world and defeat Dormammu and Caecilius and his acolytes. And that is Doctor Strange.
Yep.
That is Marvel Studios presents Brain Digger.
Brain digger. He digs in your brain.
So I want to talk about this before I forget because Dormammu, they said he wants to eat Earth.
Right.
or eat or
No,
he's
he
not
wants
galactic.
everything-
like dark
He
energy.
wants
consumed.
everything to become part of himself.
And they said like he hungers for Earth more than everything. Why does he want Earth so bad? Did they ever explain
because
that?
that's where the movie takes place, David. Obviously.
Is there a reason that Earth is special?
We're getting dangerously close to me doing something crazy right now.
Do it. I'm so in for it.
I'm going to throw out my super dump first thing.
Well, okay, please don't stop listening after he does this. But this is we're 5 minutes in the episode.
I know.
Go.
Do it.
I'm ready.
Dormammu.
Yeah.
I think he is very cool looking, and I think that the concept of like a supernatural entity hellbent on eating the Earth is
Galactus.
Is
great,
Galactus.
but it's also Galactus.
Yeah.
And he does nothing.
Yeah.
Even in the scene where he's approached, he's almost silly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like, don't get me wrong, love the way he's defeated. Love it. I think it's very Doctor Strange.
The visual
However,
effect of Dormammu also is
he's incredible.
really
Benedict Cumberbatch.
unsettling.
which
it
wait,
is.
is it really?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
No, it's not.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
I
plays
love that.
Smog and Dormammu.
I love that.
Yep.
But I wish that he had had more to do. I wish that he had been scarier.
I wish there was a reason why I should be afraid of him.
Yeah, there was no. I mean, it was just supernatural entity. Ahoy! Let's get
Yeah.
after it.
Yeah.
That I agree with that, and I think that speaks to a bigger problem in this movie, which is kind of the motivations of characters.
Yeah.
Like this is one of those movies where, to me, it kind of just keeps ticking along, and while you're watching it,
Like time?
like the eye of Agahunko. It just keeps ticking along, and while you're watching it, you don't super notice it, but then when you step back and reflect, you're like, wait. What motivation did Doctor Strange have to stay with magic school? Like, why was he still hanging out in Tilda Swinton's Hogwarts?
I disagree with that actually.
Well,
his hands weren't working yet.
Yeah.
Right, but once he had the ability, like, so you're saying he stayed there.
His hands still weren't working. He
So
talked about
that's
that.
his motivation for
Yeah.
the whole movie. So he goes to fight Dormammu. So
no,
that he
no,
can
no,
eventually
no,
get his
no,
hands
no, no.
back?
By then, I think he's had a revelation.
No.
Which is what?
No, it's my favorite scene in the movie where he and the Ancient One have that conversation, and he says, "My hands still don't work," and then she says, "The guy that came and got his legs working, he's using magic," and he says, "So he's constantly using magic, so I can get my old life back," and she's like, "Yes, you can, and the world would be lesser for it."
Yeah.
And she says, "You need to learn the lesson that it's not about you." And we've arrived at my super pump.
Oh, whoa! What is happening right now? This is insane.
We
Hit me.
can't. Hey, we have to go the full hour though. Like if
I
we
want more.
blow it all right now, we just got to keep talking.
Give it to me.
My super pump for this movie is Stephen Strange's arc, where he is, because we've seen the cockiness, we've seen
Yeah.
that in Tony Stark, but there's really hardly any redeemable qualities in him other than the fact that he's an incredible surgeon.
Right.
Like they don't give us a lot of compassion
World's
for him.
best brain digger.
Yes. But I love that the lesson he has to learn is to real strength comes through surrender.
Yeah.
And that his purpose is not about him.
Yeah.
And those two lessons I love.
Yeah, and I agree, and but I think that he was already well on his way to both of those realizations by the time they talked on the ledge.
I think that was the cherry on the.
I agree.
I have
Sunday.
such an opposite read on that for this movie.
Really?
Like, it felt like it came out of nowhere for me. Like
Really?
the moment where he's like, where she like sends him through all these dimensions, which
Yes.
is all that like Steve Ditko artwork, which is gorgeous in this movie.
Yeah, it really is.
Like whenever he comes back to our dimension and he falls on his knees, he's like, teach me. That felt so unearned to me.
No way, dude. Are you
Yeah,
kidding me?
no, it felt
if I
like-
walk up to you and I punch you in the sternum and send you into alternate realities, you're coming back a believer no matter what.
I don't know that I would say teach me though. You know what I mean? Like I don't know that I would be like, I need
would
to learn
wanna
this.
learn it.
Why did he not say heal me?
I think he knew that that's not how it was. They said that healing the body comes through healing the mind.
I don't know. It just felt something about that has always felt weird to me. And maybe that's just a personal catch or
problem?
whatever. But yeah, I need you guys to help me work
Sounds like
on
a personal
that.
problem.
Well, see, it's so funny that that's your thing because I agree that that's a cop out unless it's this, because I think that's what's so interesting to me about it is because it takes this thing that is overdone and cheesy and gives me a reason to go, yeah, that's exactly how I would react if I got punched into alternate realities.
Especially an intellectual person who has been a student of the medical field, and now he sees this other realm of something he can conquer
Yeah.
and learn, and so he might come out being like, "Teach me
I
how to
mean,
do this."
that's the equivalent of
for
saying
his healing, though.
I don't believe in Santa Claus. And then Santa stands in front of you and goes, believe in me, and then disappears and you go, okay, I have no choice.
Teach me how to ride the sleigh.
Yeah. And imagine if at that moment what you were doing is a trek to the North Pole to see if maybe Santa was real.
Yeah.
And then he does show up.
that's a really good point.
You'd be like, okay, everything I'm here for is not a lie.
You got me
And
at
to
Santa.
to me, that's why that fast flip, because I think the pacing of this movie needs the fast flip because there's so much ground to cover. And that's why I think they really did it the only way that makes sense, which is his whole purpose was to see if it's real, doesn't believe it's real, is shown it's real. The end of search. You're there.
And now we can
Start learning.
develop. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get that.
Let's park here.
There's just something, I don't know. I just have a weird catch, and I don't like, we're naturally approaching my super dump, but I don't want to just throw it all out.
Okay,
at the
yeah.
beginning.
Here's what we should
come
do.
back to talk about Doctor Strange, the character and his journey. Let's kind of talk through the structure of this movie.
Yeah.
Well, Doctor Strange, like you said, surgeon, very cocky, very good at his job. Loses his hands, the ability to use his hands.
They're gone.
He does not have hands. No, loses the ability to use his hands, and basically blows all of his money trying to find ways that he could get his hands back.
Yeah.
I love that as a surgeon, he basically looks at his hands that they perform surgery on,
Moneymaker. Yeah.
and realize they did such a terrible job, and he's the one that could have done a better job.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
it's so
love
good.
that element.
Well,
Yeah.
and there's actually, before we get to kind of that part, there's two early scenes that I want to mention and talk about a little bit. One is kind of our intro to Stephen Strange, the character, performing surgery, naming the songs and what you. I love
when he has
that.
to freehand it.
Yeah,
to
I
get
think
the
that was
bullet
so
out.
much fun. Freaking introducing our new character, Christine, who is
Yeah, she's great.
Rachel McAdams, who I love.
Yeah, she's
Love
very good
Rachel
in that.
McAdams. Didn't love Christine.
I don't like
Really?
Christine as a character. No,
Really?
way.
And I felt like Rachel McAdams is such an incredible actress, I think. And I was so excited to see her in an MCU movie. And I felt like she didn't do much.
Yeah.
She definitely didn't do a lot, but I don't have a problem
And
with anything
I
she
didn't feel
did.
like she had much of a personality. Again, I felt like it was very just like flat. Like she was
I
Stephen
don't-
Strange's.
I disagree with you.
I don't feel like she's as bad as Jane.
No,
Like I don't feel like she's
I don't
just.
think she's Jane.
But I do. There is a little bit of like Stephen Strange is a jerk to her, and the second that so she leaves his apartment essentially when I don't remember what he says, but essentially they have
It's
like
time for you to leave. That's literally what he says to
Okay,
her.
well,
He
that's
literally
convenient.
tells her, it's time for you to leave.
Stephen Strange is like leave, and she's like okay, I will.
She says, this is where you say sorry. And he says, this is where we say goodbye. And then she leaves.
Yeah. So, and then he comes back and suddenly he's a wizard and she's like cool with him. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't.
Well, and did we get a good picture of their relationship before the movie started? Because
They weren't in a relationship, guys. Did we watch the same movie?
We did. They were in a relationship.
At one point, but not when
Not
he
when
left.
the movie started. Not when he left. But then she like comes and tries to help him and take care of him.
Because they're friends. And she does have a crazy crush. Which look at Benny Boy and me too. And
I don't
look
know,
at
man.
Rachy Rach and me too.
I don't.
It
It
makes
just
sense.
something about it. Just and I can't
with
quite put
you.
my finger on it.
Me
Something about
neither.
it just felt weird to me.
I literally give it the same treatment in my head. And I guess this is just watching movie as different people, but like watching this in my head, I'm like, yeah, her old friend that she was mad at and was mean to her. But like, if one of you guys was mean to me and then disappeared for 6 months and showed back up, I'd still be happy to see you.
Hang on, though.
No, especially if you created a portal out of thin air with sparky magic and appeared to me and we're just like, hey, shock my heart. And then like, yeah, I'd be like, let's hang out a little more. I missed you. Show me magic.
But see, that's the thing. It's not let's hang out a little bit more because I like you as a person. It's let's hang out a little bit more so you can show me magic.
That's what I would do.
I know, and that's the thing that feels reductive of her to me because she doesn't. It seems like she doesn't care about Steven. She cares about helping Steven. She cares about fixing him, and she cares about his magic. But it doesn't. I don't buy that she likes Stephen Strange the person.
I felt like
I
we
don't
didn't
think
have
anybody liked Stephen Strange the person beforehand. I think that's the point, is that she was willing to put up with him, and now that he's transforming to a better person, there's hope for them to have an actual relationship.
I would have loved to see more of that's the only person that would put up with him, and he realizes that after he loses his gifts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And people are basically being around him for his gifts, and
We need
but
that,
my man, I see that.
We need that
I
Iron
didn't-
Man moment where Tony looks at Pepper and goes, "You're all I have."
yeah.
I just think it was
We
shown and
need
not
that
told.
moment.
Speaking of, Rachel McAdams turned down the role for Pepper Potts.
Yes.
Did she really?
Yeah.
I don't really care for Gwyneth Paltrow and her like whole deal, her whole persona.
I don't care for her deal. What's her deal?
Situation.
I'm not really into that whole scene.
Tell him why you really don't like her. It has to do with a band that I know that you
Oh yeah, I'm Team Chris all the way. Team Chris Martin all the way.
Yeah, I just need more songs that are like, oh.
That's a little bit of Kermit and Coldplay.
Kerm play.
But yeah, I just didn't feel like there was enough buy-in on the relationship that I got why he kept going back, other than that was the one person we've seen him interact with before his strange life.
Right. No, you're crazy, bro.
I'm Doge.
That's actually, I'm going to jump ahead and then skip right back. But one of my favorite lines in the whole movie is when he's talking to Caecilius. And he does the
Mr.
It's Doctor.
It's Doctor. Mr. Doctor. It's strange. Well, who am I to judge?
Maybe it is.
Yeah, he says maybe. So good. Yeah, that's crazy that we're getting such different reads on Christine. I really liked her character.
Yeah.
I thought that she actually was a Marvel relationship-centric female character that had some agency in the relationship and decided on her own, like, I'm done with you. This is obnoxious.
That's for
and
sure.
I was actually glad that they showed that she had some backbone. And that she's like this brilliant surgeon, and she's the only one that he trusts to fix himself and to fix the Ancient One. Like, I don't know, I really thought she was great.
I love the common thread of this movie. We've mentioned it a few times before, but of just time.
Of time, is that what you said?
Time is running through this movie, whether it's the watch that she gives him.
Yeah.
It's time to say goodbye. You're running out of time.
Even in the beginning, when he tells the
cover the
other
watch.
doctor to cover his watch.
Cover your watch.
Yeah.
Like everything is about time in this movie, which I didn't get until the second time I watched it.
Me neither.
But it's all about the time and the time stone, really.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what's crazy is that ultimately the power that saves everything is not even Doctor Strange's like main power that he uses the most.
Yeah.
Of like, which by the way, the effects of the orange sparks. Maybe the coolest visualization of magic I've ever seen.
We're here. My super pump is not necessarily just the sparks, but the visual language of this movie. That it's
Okay, cool.
a straight up just visual, like cinematic representation of Doctor Strange, like psychotropic imagery from when Steve Ditko was drawing him and creating him.
And not making it an Alice in Wonderland trip where I get out of the movie because I'm so just bogged down by trippiness.
Yeah.
This did it in such a beautiful way where I was confused by it. I was amazed by it, but I didn't lose the characters in it.
I love it. And we're kind of at a point where a lot of these superhero movies can start to look the same.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean?
And even feel the same.
There's only so many times that you can see a skyscraper fall and then leave a cloud of dust. And thankfully we're a little bit past at this point the number of times that we get to see a big beam in the sky with trash circling it as part of the final fight.
Yeah.
But this is so refreshing to me. Like this movie has such a distinct visual language.
Yeah.
I think it's just fantastic.
I think this movie is very similar in what it did for the MCU as Guardians of the Galaxy. Not only did it open up the universe, because Guardians of the Galaxy was like, Earth, we know Earth isn't alone, but I don't think you realize how not alone you are.
Yeah.
And this opened up the multiverse of saying, there's other dimensions. Forget other planets. There's other dimensions.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think on top of that, I think something Doctor Strange did really well was just prepare the MCU for like, hey, just so you know, it's going to get weird.
Yeah.
Weird stuff is going to
It's
happen.
going to get real weird from here on out.
But they're going to do it well.
Yeah.
In theaters, I had this thought in my mind. It was like a joke of like, could you imagine if DC tried to pull this off? Like, what a ridiculous movie.
Yeah.
This is a hard movie to pull off.
It is.
It's Inception in the MCU.
Yeah.
And they did a great job. I love that fight scene in the city, that opening fight scene with the Ancient One versus Caecilius.
Well, there's some huge reasons that this was as good as it is.
Yeah.
One of them is my super pump. So I actually want to hold off on talking about that because again, I don't want to just bust both out this early. But I think part of it is a lot of our super pumps and dumps for this movie are very conceptual, so there's no wrong time to bring them up.
Exactly.
But you know, one thing I do want to talk about, just while we're kind of going from subject to subject, I do want to talk about the fighting. This might be the most, and I read an article where they were talking with, I can't remember the director's name.
Scott Derrickson.
So something he said was he wanted to completely avoid magic being lightning bolt dodge, like a lot of magic is.
I love that
in
it's
movies.
physical. Yeah.
And his big thing was he wanted his magic to be almost martial arts based.
Yeah, it totally was.
And I think what that did was allowing for the sparks and, the movable objects that they're using and different things like that to look so different that it didn't feel like we were watching a Harry Potter rehash.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I think it makes the magic more of a weapon than just the only source of power.
It feels more objective too.
Yeah.
If a lightning bolt shoots at you from a magic user, there's no telling for us as the viewer whether they're going to go flying or be knocked unconscious or killed.
Yeah.
But when it's a weapon made of magic, the threat and what it represents. When they're throwing those clear icicle staff magic,
like the mirror dimension swords.
Yeah.
Those are so
Those
cool.
are so
So
cool.
dope.
What a great weapon.
And when they throw those, we know ouchie stab
they'll
time
stab
if you get
you.
hit.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there's a very tangible threat to the fighting, which I enjoyed.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the fighting. I loved all the opening scenes. We've kind of covered it. He goes to Kamotage. Kamertage? Kamertage.
So it's like Kamurtage, essentially.
Cameltage. I think so.
Careful.
Kamertage. He hears about it from a man in New York who lost.
Played by Manny's father from the sitcom Modern Family.
Very true. Lost all feeling in his legs, but now can walk. And
Are we supposed to recognize his name?
No, he's just a random guy, which I kind of dump on that. Like I just, something about that feels like, well, that's convenient that there's a guy who lives in the same city as you that went and studied the secret magic empire and came back knowing how to use a body part that was formerly unusable.
yeah,
Something else I want to dump on there is the quick turnaround from help me, you didn't help me when I have my surgery, help me anyway. All right.
Yeah.
Like that interaction was very strange because I thought it was going to be like, I came to you for my surgery. Oh, strange. Yeah. I thought it was going to be like, I came to you for my surgery. You said, no, I'll never help you. He had to go a different way. But instead he was just like, yes, Kamertage.
I think there's little moments like that all throughout this movie where like you can see the bones of the movie. You know what I mean? Like you can see like this had to happen.
Yeah.
And like we just don't have time to put fat and skin and muscle over that.
And it's not everywhere, but it's enough that I think it holds back some really great moments.
It does, because you get like when we see that, we're reminded, okay, this is a story somebody wrote and this is how they're getting Doctor Strange to Cameltage.
Well, I do love that in that conversation that he has with the Ancient One, she goes back and says, yeah, you saw that as a miracle that he was able to use his legs, but in actuality it was selfish because he could have done so much more and been a part of something so much greater, but instead he just settled for his miracle and left.
Which is her setting up
Doctor Strange,
everything that Strange is going to go through.
which I love. So yeah,
Just stuff like that is heavy-handed to me. You know what I mean?
And it definitely is. And I would say that one of the biggest problems in this movie is just how much they had to cram into it. And so it ends up with weird pacing.
Yeah.
And that's not an excuse. I'm not saying, well, the pacing's weird, so let's excuse all the weird stuff that happens. In fact, I would say even more so, it's just compounded. But
It is weird. Like I totally noticed that in the theaters, and I noticed it again the other night when I was watching this. Like it just feels like the movie's chugging along and you don't really know where you are. Like if you're watching a good solid 3-act structure, you can feel it when you're in the second act. You can feel it when that's drawing to a close and you're about to get your Death Star briefing and go into your third act.
Yeah.
And with this, it kind of just like, this is happening. Oh my gosh, we're in Hong Kong and it's the end of the movie.
because time is relative.
Yeah. It was intentional.
it's a concept.
My man Scott
film.
Derrickson is a genius.
Which I gotta say, like the film's a blast. And
Yeah,
like,
it was so much fun.
I thoroughly enjoyed watching it, but like it does have some pacing issues, and those pacing issues are oftentimes either the cause of or caused by some story issues.
I think it's a similar situation to Age of Ultron, where like
Yeah, I agree with that.
moment to moment, this is the most fun movie you can possibly be watching. But when you step back and look at it, it's like, it's tough to swallow the whole thing.
I didn't have a problem with the pacing. My super dump, however, so he goes to Kamertage, and he after he's shown and then becomes a student, I felt like they kind of showed a little bit of a montage of like him learning, but I had no idea how much time had passed.
Right.
And I didn't know, is he like super proficient now? Is he still kind of learning? And so I felt like at times he was very proficient and great and now very skilled. But then in his first fight, one of his little shield goes out to show like, oh, he's not. And then, so I felt like I didn't realize how much time had passed.
I think what they're trying to do is draw the distinction between like, he intellectually understands all of this stuff, but he can't bring himself to fully surrender to it, which is just, it's a hard concept in general. and it's hard to portray that in a movie.
Yeah.
I agree. I just feel like it doesn't quite land.
I felt like we needed a more clear picture of here's how much time passed. And I thought he should have been very proficient by the end of the movie. And I felt like he kind of lucked his way a little bit. And I want my Doctor Strange who can handle the Infinity Stone. That's another thing that was a little bit weird for me is the access to the Infinity Stone was way too easy.
Yeah, it was just sitting out on a pedestal.
There's a few things that were way too easy. You know, it's like,
But I wonder if the reveal at the end that it was an Infinity Stone is significant to the fact that like people don't know that it is one.
Wong is the one that tells him it's an Infinity
yeah.
Stone.
No, I know.
And why wouldn't Caecilius go for that?
Maybe Caecilius didn't know that.
Why
is what
didn't
I'm
Wong
saying.
lock that up like he locked up all the other books?
I agree with that.
Well, and
whenever Doctor Strange is like making portals and stealing books from Wong,
that's what I want to talk about.
why does Wong not go, oh, this is obviously the guy who tried to check out a book, and I was like, don't check out the book. He was like, what if it's late? And I didn't think he was funny.
Well, and here's the other thing. How is the library that has all of these secrets that no one can ever find, like basically a safe?
Yeah.
How is that? How is he not able to say, okay, obviously they're using the sling rings.
Yeah.
Is there not? I thought either sling rings don't work in here, like we know about that, or it's not just one guy who's reading at a desk who can have. If he knows sling rings exist, how is he not realizing thefts can happen all the time?
He has headphones in.
I do want to pump that he's listening to Beyonce while that's happening.
I'm saying he has headphones in.
No, I get that, but
I do want to dump that that's also the exact scene that we get in The Amazing Spider-Man 1 where Stan Lee is playing a librarian and Spider-Man and the Lizard are fighting in the background of the library.
Oh yeah, a lot of the humor in this is one of the examples of over Guardians of the Galaxy-ing a movie in some instances. Like I hated the Shambhala, like, is that like my mantra? And he's like, no, it's the Wi-Fi password.
Really?
It's like, we don't
I
need
actually
that.
thought the humor
Really?
worked really well in this
Yeah,
movie.
No, I
that
think
a
in a lot
lot.
of places it does, but there are just some parts, and for me, it's
that was like my favorite.
it's the
Yeah, I love
listening,
that.
listening to Beyonce in the library. Like,
Well,
that
that's
was just too
because he
much
just
for me.
called him Beyonce.
No, I
Like-
know, but that was just too much for me.
I don't know. I think the humor worked really well. It did feel out of character for Doctor Strange. Like it was kind of scene to scene of like, remember, he's so silly, but also he's so serious. Like, and it just changed.
maybe
scene
that's
to
what I'm
scene.
trying to say is like the placement of humor where I feel like it doesn't belong is what frustrates me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying it doesn't belong in this movie, because there are moments of really good humor throughout the movie that I think Wong's hilarious. When he dies laughing at the end finally,
Yes.
I think that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Stuff like that's so good. It was just, there were a couple of scenes where it was like, oh, it's really heavy right now. And then it's like joke to cut the tension. And for me, for Jordan, I wasn't there yet. I didn't need the tension cut yet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Almost my super pump. Mordo. Mondo's
The poster
a guy that I work with.
poster company.
But Mordo is incredible.
He's great.
He is so
You know how to
good.
say his name, and I don't.
I do. Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah, exactly.
goodness.
He is so good.
He's so good.
Oh my goodness.
The way that he can like cry, just shed like that one manly tear while giving a dialogue.
Yeah.
I'm in.
He did great.
I'm ready.
and
Say his
he-
name again.
Chiwetel.
Ooh, dang it.
Say Mufasa. Chiwetel. This is how I've heard it pronounced. So sorry if it's incorrect, but Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Okay, Chiwi, if you're listening,
Chiwi.
hit us up. Make sure we're saying your name right.
Yeah, let's hang out. But yeah, he's fantastic. Did you say he's your super pump? Sorry,
He's almost my super
almost
pump.
a super pump.
Yeah.
Because somebody else who, speaking of crying, I don't know if you guys caught this. So Mads Mikkelsen.
Yes.
In his scene where he's in the chains
Yes.
and he's explaining what Dormammu does, the whole time he's talking,
Yeah.
He's
he
crying.
is crying.
Yeah.
And I was watching, and because of the makeup on his face,
You can't see it.
I
hard to see
couldn't
it.
tell. But I was like, his eyes look very full, and then I started noticing tears
Yeah.
come down his cheeks.
He's amazing.
Dude, he is one of my
Great
favorite. Like let me put it this way: I have never ever not liked him in something.
He's
Do
great.
you think there's a version of this movie in which we don't have or need Dormammu and Caecilius fills that role?
For Jordan, we could have Dormammu as a faceless name floating in the ether that is terrifying that we never see this movie, and just have Caecilius need to be stopped.
Caecilius is trying to summon him or something.
Yeah.
like
It's
that.
essentially the idea. We literally just talked about Eldritch Horror like 2 hours ago, but it's the idea
Yeah.
that in a lot of like Lovecraftian or Eldritch Horror stories, the true villain is not the terrifying creature; it's the person trying to summon it.
Yeah, I feel like Dormammu should have been a little more impersonal.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
Like he's this, maybe not a monster, but like he's this thing we cannot understand, and Caecilius is trying to bring him to Earth.
Yeah.
and trying
I
to
like the way they
which
did it.
is what it is. it's just revealed too much.
It's just Dormammu is, and I get that like there's a comic book precedent and like Dormammu has a
of
face
course.
and he's a person in the
course.
comics, but something about it just didn't fully work for me that Dormammu has like 2 human eyes and a human nose and a human mouth.
That doesn't bother me
that
so
didn't bother
much
me
as
either.
I just think that Dormammu could have been pushed off even for one more movie and let Caecilius
Well,
summoning Dormammu be.
I think
They're
we need.
clearly doing Baron Mordo for the second movie,
or
which is gonna be awesome.
I love that.
yes,
I love
but
that.
there's also another rumor that I can't remember right now. But there's another villain rumored to be the villain of movie 2 that they almost did for movie 1.
Really?
I can't remember what it is, but it sounded awesome. But yeah, Mordo would be great too.
Yeah.
I think we needed to know Dormammu's plan. What was he going to do? Because all we knew is he wanted to consume the earth.
Which actually is a big problem for me because him floating above the Hong Kong sanctum, I think that it was very cool looking, but it was a little too reminiscent of Suicide Squad trash
Yeah, I
pyre.
can see that.
And Caecilius is just dancing like one of those inflatable guys in front of a car dealership.
But the entirety of the reversal fight scene when
that's
everything's
very
moving
cool.
backwards, that might be one of the most impressive
Okay.
visual effects I've ever seen.
Here's a problem with that though. Now that we know Doctor Strange has the time stone and knows how to use it safely, like he doesn't cause a cataclysmic end of the space-time continuum when he uses that, nothing has any consequence anymore. Now that he can just essentially push rewind and say, well, let's have a do-over of that.
Yeah.
Sure, and I hear you, but you saying that's a problem, it hasn't presented itself as a problem yet. I think it's a potential problem in waiting unless it's handled
And that's
correctly.
that's what makes Thanos so powerful when he gets it.
Maybe. I mean, we're assuming at this
Yeah.
point.
But I want to talk about Caecilius for a second because
please.
Loved him. And something the director said was something we've said multiple times. Like we're really on point with our podcast.
we're
Yeah,
really good at
obviously.
stuff.
Let's direct the movie, guys.
We talked about the one-dimensional villains
Yeah.
Yeah.
in the MCU. Like up to this point, there hasn't been many standouts, and he noticed that too. And he said, "I just want to,
I read this.
I just want to make all of the villains' points very logical,
Yeah.
where you understand where they're coming from." And he did that with Caecilius, with realizing the Ancient One is drawing power from the dark dimension, and Dormammu gives it freely. She's hoarding it, and he wants to give it. He's going to liberate us. He's going to set us in a
Yeah.
time in a realm without time.
Yeah.
We all long for eternity, and he's going to give it to us. Time is the thing that kills all things. So like you kind of get it.
It was almost Doctor Doomy.
It
Yeah.
was.
Like very like doing wrong to right the world kind of a situation.
There can be no death where there is no life.
Right, yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
And my one problem with that is the scary eye mask that all of his followers and himself wore, because it brought me back to that moment where you're like, do you think
we
that
the
we're
bad
the bad
guys?
guys?
Yeah.
Because like we have
Look
like
at our
really
eyes.
scary eye.
But that's not a
things.
mask.
No, I know.
Yeah.
It happened
Okay, I
to
just
them.
want to make sure that we were on the same
No,
page
no.
about that
they're
happening.
they're summoning Dormammu, which they think is the right thing to do.
Right.
Because he's going to liberate us.
Why
and then
would
they
it-
get evil mask, and I'd be like, ooh, wait, maybe
Why wasn't
this
the
was-
ancient one like that? If
Yeah,
she's drawing power from Dormammu, she has the little mark on
She
her
wasn't
forehead.
drawing from Dormammu, was she? She was drawing from just the
dark
darkness in
dimension.
general.
They present it as if Dormammu
Is
they
the dark-
literally say the dark dimension, Dormammu.
like personified
this.
personified
Yeah.
essentially.
Like he
I
is the dark
didn't necessarily
dimension.
get that. I thought he was in the dark dimension, but I don't know if he necessarily
Regardless,
was.
I think that Caecilius and his followers should have had like that little symbol that shows up on
and how
the
come
ancient
hers only
one's head.
came on at the very end?
Exactly.
and only for a second it was gone again right after it showed up.
Maybe she's using like really good foundation.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Maybe she's born with it.
That could be.
Baby, it's Maybelline.
Which actually, real quick, I do want to toss out. Tilda Swinton's so great.
she was great.
She's good in this. There was actually a lot of backlash over her presence as the Ancient One in this movie because the Ancient One is
An old Chinese man.
typically an old Asian man, but they were like, we don't want to have an Asian stereotype.
That's what I read. Yeah.
But then also they kind of ran afoul of people who are like, well, you actually, instead of having an Asian stereotype, you just whitewashed a character.
Yeah.
And you missed the chance for Asian representation in
Yeah.
maybe the biggest genre of movies right now.
That's a good point. I see where they were coming from, wanting to. It's one of those cases where attempting to be sensitive accidentally stepped over the line into offensive.
yeah.
yeah.
For a lot of people, and that's just a hard line to walk. And hopefully, both the director has maybe learned a lesson from this, and also people were able to show grace and understanding
Yeah.
that he was trying to be sensitive.
Well, that's
there.
a hard issue anyway.
It
Like,
definitely.
How do
is.
you navigate that?
Yeah, it definitely
and
is.
I think she was great in the role.
Tilda Swinton's phenomenal.
And I liked having the Ancient One being a woman.
I did too.
Yeah.
I felt like that brought a different
And
kind of leadership
her
to that
with-
school.
with spoiler alert if you haven't seen Ragnarok, but Cate Blanchett as Hela.
Yeah.
We have two of the most like iconic, like frightening,
otherworldly actresses.
Yeah, like they're so great.
They're very good in both of those movies.
So let's continue. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one thing I didn't love about Caecilius was just, it was like, they're pretty clearly evil people.
Yeah.
And so having this great logic kind of falls short now because you're like, but dude, you're like, you got red eyes and fangs. Like, you're a bad guy.
You're obviously the bad guy. You look like a monster.
Which is why I say that if we had focused solely on Caecilius as the villain, we could have gotten a lot more fleshed out with him. But with the inclusion of physical embodiment Dormammu, we had to tear attention away from Caecilius for a bit.
Small Pump,
Yeah.
Boots of Encore,
Yeah.
or Encore, or Encore, whatever it is.
Things that make him, those are so sick.
Those are very, very cool.
I love the certain relics. He said, we can't harness all the power, so we put them into relics. And he's like, "Where's my relic?" And he's like, "You'll get one soon enough." But he's like, "I got the Boots of Encore and this cool little stick."
Speaking of relics, what did you guys think about the Cloak of Levitation?
Super into it.
Loved it.
Loved it having like its own, because that's from like a 2012 or 2016 comic where the cloak is like has agency, like it can move on its own and it has personality, and I'm actually very into it.
I liked that, and I think it. I don't know what I was going to parallel it with.
Magic carpet.
Was it the magic carpet from Aladdin?
100%.
Now that you're saying that, I parallel it with Vision, who got the hammer, and they all realized Vision's something special.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they said, "The Cloak of Levitation came to you."
It's super choosy. Yeah.
Then that means you're someone special.
Yeah, no,
I feel
I
like
think that's
that
good.
upped the character a little bit.
Yeah. I hear
That's
that.
one of those moments where I feel like I can see the bones of the movie, though, where it's like they need a reason to trust him. Magic cape.
I feel like they already trusted him. I think it was just more saying like, "Oh, you must be more skilled than we realize."
Yeah.
I think they already trusted him. I didn't see it like that.
I don't know. And I think maybe this brings me to my super dump in terms of just like being able to see the bones of this movie and like the weird kind of structure and Doctor Strange's very strange arc. My super dump for this movie is probably Stephen Strange himself. Like,
Interesting.
like he is, and like, it sucks because there's not a great way to do this movie because Stephen Strange is kind of a Mary Sue. He is the best surgeon in the whole world.
Yeah.
Then he has something bad happen to him, but don't worry. He's becoming the Sorcerer Supreme, the best sorcerer in the whole world.
Yeah.
And it's like he worked really, really hard and got 2 medical degrees at the exact same time.
It's like the Hal Jordan.
It really
It
is.
is,
He's
yeah.
like, it's like, oh, don't worry, Steven's here. He can't do anything wrong.
He wasn't actually named Sorcerer Supreme in this movie though.
Was he? I thought
She was, right?
Oh, she was
The
Sorcerer
ancient
Supreme,
one
but
was Sorcerer Supreme.
at the same time, it's like, oh, here's this guy who's been a wizard for like
No, yeah, I
a
hear
month. Let's give him the New York sanctum.
And that's the thing, we don't know. We don't know how long it's been.
That's right. It could have been 6 years. I have no idea.
That's not addressed. Well, it couldn't be actually because before his accident, after his accident, before or after, I don't remember, he sees an award that he got for something in surgery in 2016, which tells us that this is in 2016 or at least in 2016, if not post, which means that the phone call he gets in the car is him denying doing surgery on Rhodey.
Is it really?
That's
Has to be. It literally has to
That's
be.
what I've heard. I don't know if that.
It has to be. Think of the timeline.
It says
if
late-
this is 2016 that he's doing this in, like because for him to have an award that said 2016, at minimum it's got to be, let's call it January 4th, because the awards were on the 2nd, because nobody does anything on New Year's, and he's had it for more than a day because it's already in a case. So let's say at minimum, at the earliest, this movie takes place on January 4th, 2016. So if we're to think that, odds are it's a lot later in the year. We know Civil War takes place in 2016. What are the odds that the best neurosurgeon in the world gets a call asking him to do surgery on somebody that broke his spine in a mech suit? It
Does it
has
say
to
a
be
mech
Rhodes.
suit?
Yes.
Convinced.
Has to be Rhodes that he turns down doing the surgery on, which I wonder if that will come back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't think it was Rhodes? Is that what you're saying?
And not that I don't think it was Rhodes. It's just that I don't know how I feel about it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that we need like little reminders like, hey, remember, it's Avengers are here too.
That's not what I felt like it was. To me, it felt like a reminder of like
felt-
he is the best
I think
neurosurgeon
that's a
because
cool
Stark called him.
connection.
Yeah.
Can I do a?
I think you're just, I don't know. I think you've got something about this movie that's making you bitter.
No, I really like this movie, and we'll talk about that when we get to the
Yeah.
ratings. Like, there's just something about Stephen Strange's character where it's like, He's the best at the beginning.
And then the best at the
And
end.
he
again.
never really stops being the best in the middle. He just hasn't tried it yet.
Or he just can't.
Yeah, he tries magic. The first time he tries magic, you know what I mean? Like the first time he really sits down and studies magic, he becomes the best sorcerer.
I will tell you, I rolled my eyes so hard I saw out my own butt when they were like, "Did you read all those?" It's like photographic memory. It's like, okay, so you're the best studier.
I feel like there's not a way. There's not a way to make
super
that.
study.
How do you make that character compelling though? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like it really is Hal Jordan. It's like you cannot relate to this guy because it's just like, oh, everything you touch turns to gold.
Yeah.
Great. You're an awesome brain digger. Good for you.
That's true. And I think that's why Doctor Strange in the comics is more compelling when he's part of the group, not on his own.
Yeah, because he can offer so much help.
Yeah,
So
he
I
can
don't know. Is
offer.
there a way to do this movie where it's not an origin story? Where it's like we just plop down and
way.
Doctor Strange is a magician?
No way.
I don't know
We
if
have
you
to have
can.
explanation. But that's why, hopefully, I think that this movie serves as a fun, gorgeous looking,
Yeah.
if not weird and strangely paced intro to what is going to be a really cool mainstay character in the MCU.
Well, I want to do a big reverse dump back on Winter
reverse
What
dump?
is that?
back on Winter Soldier.
Is
Like
it
you want to take a dump
pump?
away?
No, I want to go. I want to reverse, like, rewind
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Rewind dump.
in Winter Soldier when he was like, "Who's Hydra targeting?"
Keep an
They're
eye
like,
on Stephen Strange.
Stephen Strange. Anyone who's a threat to Shield. When
How
was
is
Stephen
he
Strange a threat to Shield?
I know.
They
I
were
think-
name dropping Stephen Strange for us, which I loved in the moment because I was like, Stephen Strange exists in this universe. And then they're like, 2016, the origin. I'm like, so why was Hydra?
Why were they keeping an eye on him?
Because he's a really good surgeon.
Yeah,
Sometimes
like-
they need surgery.
What if they hurt their fingers?
Yeah, I hated that.
I agree.
Going back.
This movie retroactively makes that moment really bad.
Yeah.
But talking about his surgeries, I do want to say I'm impressed and huge pump on the fact that they keep his hands looking gnarly the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
I
Hello, Jordan.
God?
I said surgery and it thought I said, "Hey Siri." Please don't do that any longer.
Hey, surgery?
I was talking about his fingers,
Yeah,
his
hands.
fingies.
They looked weird the whole time.
I was expecting them to let that effect just fade away and forget about it, but he keeps those gnarly scars on his hands the whole time, and it was like pretty grotesque for me to look
And
at.
have you noticed that though in Ragnarok he's got his yellow gloves?
Yeah.
The Doctor Strange yellow gloves, the classic thing.
He's wearing
Oh
them
no, I
at-
didn't notice that.
He's wearing them at the end credit scene.
well, that way they don't
That's
have to
from
do.
that's literally the scene. From
I know,
Ragnarok.
but I'm saying, like,
They don't have to do
David,
his.
That's literally the
I'm
It's
saying
David.
they do it in
David,
this
it's
movie.
the one
from
from
Ragnarok.
David. It's the one from Ragnarok.
I'm
from
telling
Thor
you
3.
that they put the gloves on at the end of this
Yeah.
movie.
But that's so they don't have to put on his finger prosthetics every scene.
but I
he's
guess
in.
what I'm just saying is like I was impressed, honestly, that they had it for that long.
I love when you take a comic book and it is just very similar in the movie as far as costume design. Yellow gloves was the one thing that I felt like we could have done without.
I could have
maybe
left, I
get
could have
rid of
left the
this.
yellow gloves on the comic book page.
I feel like you could have just done like the same color as everything else, like that
or even
gray.
red. Like we don't need to bring in
Yellow
another
looks,
color.
It looks like Thor came in and he was washing dishes, and he
It
was like,
really does.
"Oh, hey,
They
what's
look
up?"
like those work gloves.
No, but I can talk.
No, I'm not busy. I'm not busy.
Yeah, I do not like the yellow gloves. I respect the reason for the yellow gloves.
Sure.
Don't need the
And
yellow
that
gloves.
is a super duper nitpick.
But I do want to say, so I haven't tossed my super pump, and it feels like the right time just talking about different characters and such kind of while we're like whirlwinding here at the end. But my super pump for this movie, and it was a weird decision to make because I don't know that I've ever done a super pump this meta before. But my super pump for this movie is actually all of the actors that this movie introduced into the MCU. Like, we got Benedict Cumberbatch, we got Rachel McAdams, we got Chiwetel Ejiofor, we got
Yeah, him.
Tilda Swinton, we got Mads Mikkelsen, we got so the guy that plays Nick, the doctor that he doesn't like,
Yeah.
is the same guy who plays the chief in Arrival, or not the chief, but the FBI guy that doesn't
yeah.
let them go away and holds the gun to
Oh
them.
my gosh,
he's
yeah.
the guy from Fargo season 3 with the mustache. That's him. And so like I
Manny's
love that
dad
dude.
from Modern Family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad he's.
Him.
What's other Benedict's last name?
What?
Guy who plays Wong.
Literally Wong.
It's Benedict Wong.
Yes, his name is Benedict Wong.
So is he playing himself?
I don't know, but he's great. I love him.
I love him so much.
There are so many great characters played by so many great actors introduced all at once in this movie.
Yeah.
And that for me, the idea, because Christine Palmer, she's one of the night nurses.
She is night nurse in the comics. Yeah.
Well, her and Claire Temple share night nurse as a title.
It's like a legacy title passed down. Yeah.
But like, that's dope to me, man.
That's super cool.
So I'm super into everybody that was brought into this movie.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that's kind of how I look at this movie is like, this is something really important with a bunch of people who are super important, and we're going to do the best we can. Here it is. And I think that for what it is, it really succeeded.
See, I can totally see that this movie is that, but I like it so much more than that.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah, I love it.
It's better than that. This movie is one of those classic movies like we always talk about. It is a lot better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah,
You know
absolutely.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you take each individual piece and analyze it, you're like,
really is.
that is so stupid. Why do they do that? But it comes together.
Yeah,
Sure.
Well, and again, my super pump was that story arc, and I love the individual scenes where she leaves him on Mount Everest and she goes, "Surrender, Stephen," and closes him. He's got like 2 minutes. He has to learn to surrender. That talk where they have when she's about to die, and she says, "You need to realize it's not about you." And the payoff is one of the best climaxes in the MCU movie history, where Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
was good.
love
That was
that
such
ending.
a risky choice for the end of this movie.
It
too,
really
'cause
was.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I wanted to see in that scene, though, and
What?
this is just a me thing. This isn't a dump necessarily. I wanted to watch that scene and see that moment went on for what we would understand as like centuries, like that he had to repeat that moment hundreds.
How do
if
you
not
do that
thousands.
though? How do
I know,
you
and
demonstrate that?
That's the
like
hard
a card
part.
100 years later.
Well, almost, because when I watched it, what I saw was roughly, if you count all the quick deaths, about 30 times, maybe took all in all 8 hours. Dormammu has been playing this for how long? And then 8 hours later, he's like, I'm done with this. I'll
Yeah.
leave forever.
Yeah, but you're also saying it's not just the amount of time that's gone by; it's how frustrating it is to kill somebody and them not be dead.
No.
So
I know that,
I
but
get
he's
it.
also like an ancient celestial being and probably could handle it a little bit
Well,
better.
and it's weird too because Dormammu says, "What is this?" and Steven says, "It's time."
because
no, he lives outside of time. That's
outside
why
of
he doesn't
time.
understand it.
But how is Dormammu interacting with Steven, who is still in time, if Dormammu is outside of? You know what
He's
I mean?
not in time. He went into. He brought time into
brought
the
time
darkness.
he
with
says,
him.
"You know how you brought darkness into Caecilius, into
I brought
our
something
realm?
new to you."
I brought something into yours.
Okay.
and it's time."
I guess I missed that.
And I think, and you're right. I think that's why Dormammu hates it so much. Is because he's never experienced time before.
Yeah.
I guess I just wish that it didn't feel like Dormammu was like, I'm evil, and Doctor Strange's like, let me be annoying for like 30 minutes, and you're gonna change your mind.
Yeah, see, I didn't get that because we don't know how long it took.
You're right.
And I
which
love-
seems to be the problem for a lot of things in this
It's
movie.
true.
Yeah.
It's very
We
true.
don't know
That's
how
the
long it
dump.
took.
That's the dump for sure. But I love the self-sacrifice where he says, "You can't win," and he says, "No, but I can lose."
And they won't. Yeah.
and over and over again. And he says, "But you'll experience pain." He goes, "It's an old friend," and he keeps killing him. It's
the line,
great ending.
pain's an old friend, pretty dope. However, he got his hands crushed one time.
Yeah, Steven, you've had such a hard life, my dude.
It's
I didn't
he
think
lived a
about that.
pretty charmed life
Yeah.
and then got his hands crushed. And yes, he was very sad about this. And yes, he had lots of surgeries. And yes, that sucks. But I feel like it was a little on the light side of suffering to be like, Payne and I go way back.
It's just, and that's the bigger thing is it's so hard to feel sympathetic for somebody because we're so used to in stories seeing somebody who's like on top of the world and is mean to people. Like we're used to seeing that person as a villain. And so when
their
they
comeuppance.
exactly, we were like, oh, you deserved this. And it's so hard to be like, no, we want you to be back the way you were.
No, but we
Just like you
don't
did.
though.
It's hard to
It's hard to root for what he's rooting for. Is that
Exactly,
what you mean?
yeah.
Okay,
It's,
I
but
hear
it's hard
that.
to root for him because like you were a jerk. You had this coming, man.
Yeah, but I think we're not supposed to root for him. We're supposed to, again, the Ancient One's main goal was you have such capacity for good, but it's not because you really want to do good. It's because you have a fear of failure.
Yeah.
And that's what's stopping you. He goes, no, that's what made me a good sermon or a good surgeon.
A good
And-
brain digger.
And she says, but that's the biggest lesson you need to learn is it's not about you. Until you realize that, you're never going to be as good as you can be. So to me, it wasn't, oh, we want you to change. We just want your motivation to change. It's
Now-
to not selfishness.
Let me tell you what I would be really. We need to move on to rating, but what I want to talk about real briefly is actually the logic jump that we have to make from the end of this movie to the post credits, as into Doctor Strange in Ragnarok, because it can't be that long But Doctor Strange is now aware of Odin and knows where he is and knows his location. And Odin trusts him by telling him this. And Doctor Strange is now really seems to have stepped into Sorcerer Supreme. And I mean Supreme as in it's got all the toppings. And one of those toppings
There's olives
is
on this bad boy.
magic everything.
So you're saying like we don't know how much time had passed?
Yeah. Hey, I do want to point out they show the passing of time by the graying of his burns.
Do they really?
Yeah, he gets the gray. He gets the silver on the side. He doesn't have it at
I
the
thought he
beginning.
had that at the beginning. Maybe he didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, I agree though. That's something that's weird to me. It's like he, in this post-credit scene, which is also the first time we see Doctor Strange in Ragnarok, he's like, my name is Doctor Strange. I protect the earth from cosmic entities who might mean us harm. And your brother Loki is one of those. It's like, no, you don't, dude. You live in
You
this.
do now, maybe.
You do now. You live in this big house in New York City that a magic wizard gave you.
Again, the only problem with this is we don't know how much time has
Yeah.
passed. Because that can make perfect sense.
In a movie about the manipulation and passage of time.
Maybe it's only been a day, but he just like fast forwarded time until he was the best at everything.
Dog,
again.
I want to talk about the apple because it's the dopest thing in the whole world.
Forbidden fruit, maybe?
Yes, but it is so cool when he rewinds and fast forwards the apple.
Here's my
It's
question.
unbelievable.
What happens if he rewinds past when it's whole?
That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see it shrink and like turn back into a seed.
Here's what I wanted to know. The apple, it kind of like disintegrated, you know?
Yeah.
But there were chunks taken out of it. So who was eating the apple?
I think they were the bites he was going to take. It's
Fast
a
forward into the
paradox.
future, the bites he was going to take.
So he was going to eat the apple.
He was already eating it. He takes a bite before he does it. It's his apple.
So that's what Wong is talking about when he says you're going to mess up the space-time. Like if
Exactly.
you fast forward and take a bite that you weren't going to take, is that what messes up?
Is that a new timeline?
Is that a butterfly effect?
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to have an evil
and
Doctor Strange.
I love timeline stuff, and so I hope they get into that later. But yeah, no, all I wanted to talk about was how dope the apple effect is.
Yeah,
of
it's
just
great.
Exactly. Yeah.
So love that. Anyway, should we rate this thing?
Let's rate it.
Let's rate it.
Let's talk about our rate. Before I do that, sorry. Anything else?
I don't think
I
so.
did forget to super dump last week. So did I super pump and super dump?
I think so.
Did you super pump and super dump?
I did.
Did you super pump and super dump?
Did.
Okay.
We super pump and super dump.
Okay, so let's talk about our rating system. We here at Two Chunks and a Hunk have come up with the perfect thing. You know what it is? It's the Scientific Cinema Scale TM. It's flawless, and here it is. The best thing we could ever say about a movie is own it. Don't lend it, buy that poster. Next best thing we could ever say about a movie, buy it. Spend your money, your dollars, your bucks. The next best thing we could ever say about a movie is rent it. Spend a couple of bucks, watch it once, watch it twice in the rental period. You know how it goes. The next best thing we could ever say about a movie is stream it. Don't spend extra bucks, but if your bucks are already going towards a streaming service, might as well use those bucks. Which, by the way, this is on a streaming service. It's on Netflix for free, so check it out. The next best and second worst thing that we could ever say about a movie is forget it. You're better off if you just pretend that this movie does not exist. And lastly, the worst thing that we could ever say about a movie, God hath forsaken us. So, it's time to rate Doctor Strange. Anybody dying to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
This movie for me is a pretty easy rent it. It's very good while you're watching it, but if you step back and look at it, there might be enough problems for you to go, you know what, I'm glad I watched it once. I don't know that it's something I want to keep watching. Or there might be enough fun moments where you go, I'm glad I watched it once. Let me watch it twice. But I think your safest monetary investment in this movie is in the form of a rental.
Fair.
Just looking out for your wallets, Chunk Nash.
Fair.
Jordan?
Yeah. I actually give this movie, and I'm shocked by the difference in our ratings here. I actually give this movie a high stream it. It was almost a rental for me, but I'm gonna say it's a high stream it. Number one, because you already can.
It's so easy.
It's already there on Netflix for you. But also because in the grand scheme of things, this is not one that just gets me going quite like the other movies in the MCU. But I do thoroughly enjoy it, and I definitely think it's worth a watch. But if you've already seen all these movies and you're not just watching through for the first time to get background story, then I wouldn't even say that this would be high up on my list of priorities for one to really hit. So for me, it's a pretty easy high stream.
I think this movie is very overlooked and forgotten about. I mean, the average person, you're like, Marvel. No one's like, Doctor Strange?
Right.
It's very overlooked. And I don't like that because I love this movie. I'm giving it a high buy it.
Whoa!
I love this movie. I can't get enough of it. In fact, I like it better than one movie that I've given Own It, Don't Let It Buy That Poster. I don't think it's a better movie, but I enjoy watching it more.
Then
Winter Soldier.
what?
Yep. You heard it here first. I like this movie better than Winter Soldier.
You're crazy.
I don't think it's better. I don't think
hate
it's a
this.
better made movie.
I don't like this.
But if you gave me both of those movies, said which one you want to watch, I want to watch Doctor Strange.
Not a chance. For
I
me,
cannot
dude.
comprehend
That's crazy.
the reality
You just
in which
said a
you
crazy
live.
thing.
Yep. I love
Strange.
how much I love how different it is.
It is
I
very
love the
different.
story arc. It doesn't feel like anything we've seen in the past. And it's just a fun watch for me.
Yeah, it is.
Buy it.
I agree with that. Not the
See, I feel like this movie is so tricky to rate though, because it's one of those ones that it's like, you have to watch this or you're going to be so confused.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
when you're watching Ragnarok,
true.
you're like, whoa, who is this wizard guy in the dishwashing gloves?
Yeah, well, and that's why I'm trying to base my ratings not on if you've never
importance
seen
of
these
it.
movies, because in that case, watch all of them. Obviously,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to rate them on is just on a scale of like, what do I think they're worth to myself?
Yeah.
and for me, it's a rent it.
And that's all we can ask of you. And we've been meaning to tell you, David and I, we're so proud of you. Like you've grown into such a great young man.
Thank you so much.
And we're so excited to
It
see
means the world to me.
all the podcasts you do in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I think I agree. It's super important. Like if you go to watch Infinity War and you're like, whoa,
What?
orange spark portals. What?
Excuse me?
Yeah, it's gonna get to
Yeah.
be too crazy. That might be our widest spread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure it has.
That's
been.
crazy.
That's nuts.
Is this our most divisive movie?
I think so. I mean, except for Suicide Squad, because I feel that's a masterpiece.
What would you give Suicide Squad?
Own It, Don't Let
No way.
What'd you give
No
it?
way.
What'd you give
I
it?
think I gave it a God Hath Forsaken Us.
No,
but
you didn't.
I don't think
no,
you
didn't.
did.
You gave it like a stream it or rent it.
I'm
my
pretty sure
gosh.
you gave it a stream it.
I have regretted that every day of my life because
That's my job.
That movie is. Well, we have a whole episode about it. I don't have to talk
let's
about
not
it.
go
Let's talk about it again.
Roll tape. No, what we do need to talk about are shout outs.
We want to give a beautiful, huge, strange shout out to our boy Brady Ryan. Thank you so much for shouting us out.
Thanks, man.
Hey, we appreciate it.
If you listen to this show, please,
For the love of all things good, shout us out on social media.
Your name could be here. We could give you a strange shout out.
we don't pay to advertise this show because that would be ludicrous. We're not big enough to justify that. So the only advertising we get is free advertising. But I promise you this. If you post about our show, the next time I see you, I will hug you.
If you post about our show, we'll say your name so loud into these microphones
I will
next week.
scream your name into okay, here's the deal. If you post about our show, the three of us will scream your name as loud as we can to shout you out for the podcast next week.
One letter at a time.
I don't know about that.
I hope you have a short name.
We're talking to you, Joe.
J.O.
If there's anybody named like TJ out there who's listening to us, or like
there
a
probably actually is.
like a 2-letter name, we're all about that because we will scream your name one letter at a time next week.
I'm not doing the one letter at a time thing, but I'll scream your name.
Jordan will not be here next week when we record our podcast.
Adam, our sound guy, is going to have the worst time editing the audio,
sure
and
is.
it's going to be great.
We also do want to give a shout out to Adam Stout.
Yeah,
you're
he-
just a good old classic style amigo, and we appreciate it.
Homie gets paid in breakfast tacos.
He does.
Still shows up. That's how good the tacos are. But next week, we are going to actually double up because we're that passionate about the MCU and because we miscounted on our calendar and we are 1 week behind schedule.
This is not a math cast. This is a movie cast.
Oops. So next week, you can expect 2 movies.
But we won't tell you what
We
they
won't
are.
tell you what they are. You have to find out.
One of them is Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and that one will be coming out first. And the next one is...
Spider-Man Homecoming. Was I not supposed to say that?
I was going to say a surprise.
It's a surprise.
We'll censor
It's
that.
a Spider Prize Man Homecoming. Well, that's it.
Sure is.
You know it.
And for 2 chunks,
And...
One hunk.
See
You.
Soon.
Well, the episode's over, but since you're still hanging out here, why don't we toss some information your way?
If you want to be the first to know when we drop new content, like us on Facebook at 2 Chunks and a Hunk. Subscribe to us on YouTube or subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts.
And if you want a shout out on our next podcast, then #officialchunky.
Yeah.
That's CHUNKY.
That's true. That's true. Well, we're done here, but I guess if you want to stay, I mean, we can just
Yeah, keep hanging out.
What was your favorite part of that movie that we just saw? Did you like it?
I bet they did. I bet they did.